You are taught to study hard, earn a good degree, get a stable job, work diligently, and save steadily over time. When you're ready, buy a house. Because that's an asset and a symbol of adulthood. That formula once worked. It once brought hope, stability, and even prosperity to a generation. But pause for a moment and look around you. The world has changed too fast. While you're saving every penny of your monthly paycheck, governments are printing trillions of new dollars. While you're trying to pay off a 25-year mortgage, inflation is silently eroding your savings through each spike in gas prices, food costs, and tuition fees. While you believe a stable job is your safety net, tech companies, banks, and even universities are laying off employees one after another. So the question is, if the world has changed but your way of earning and saving hasn't, are you moving toward the future? Or are you stuck in the past? Many people are still living according to the default path society programmed into them. Don't take risks. Don't break the system. Just work hard, save, and hope that one day you'll be good enough to retire. But the truth is that the world no longer runs on the old rules. The wealthy today didn't get rich by saving. They used money, leverage, strategic thinking, and systems to break through. Meanwhile, the middle class and the poor are still trying to run faster on a hamster wheel, only to find themselves more exhausted yet stuck in the same place. They ask themselves, I've worked so hard these past 10 years. Why can't I get ahead? The answer isn't in the effort. It's in the direction. If you're feeling that something's off with the system you've been following, if you see others escaping the financial rat race while you're still struggling, then this is the moment to ask yourself the biggest question. Does what you were taught about money still make sense in today's world? And if it doesn't, will you keep walking the old path or start learning a new way to think about wealth? If what I just shared makes you want to reassess your financial journey, hit the subscribe button now. In the next videos, we'll start breaking down the old beliefs, learn how the wealthy build wealth, and more importantly, how to create a future you truly control. Each of us lives with 3 financial selves, yet rarely do we recognize them. The first is the poor self inside of the one constantly worried about losing everything, afraid of risk, and just wanting to hold on to what little they have. This self fears change, hates instability, and sees the world through a lens of lack. The second is the middle class self who craves stability. They prefer fixed incomes, long-term job contracts, and assets like houses and cars to prove to the world that they've made it. But this is also the most vulnerable self, because that stability is built entirely on a single stream of income. Lose it, and everything collapses. And the third, that is the wealthy self within you. That person doesn't work for money, they build systems that generate money. They don't seek certainty, they seek control. They don't chase safety, they chase freedom. The problem is that you were never taught to become that person. Since childhood, you were placed into an education system designed to produce people who serve the machine, not those who own it. You were taught how to write a job application, but never taught how to write a personal financial plan. You learned how to ace tests, but not how to ask the right questions about life. You were trained to be a skilled worker, not to think like a leader. So it's no surprise that most people grow up dominated by their poor and middle-class selves. And when the chance comes to step out and live like the wealthy, they hesitate, afraid, not because they aren't capable, but because they've never believed they were worthy. But if you start observing more closely, you'll realize that the wealthy are not born different. They've simply nurtured the right self within them, and that too can be learned if you dare to begin. You see, salary at first glance feels like a fair reward for your hard work. It gives you a sense of security and validation and allows you to plan life steadily. But behind that monthly paycheck is often a subtle trap, the trap of dependency. When you live on a salary, you're not just selling your time. You're giving away your autonomy, your creativity, and your power to shape your financial future. You work hard only to trade it for temporary comfort. And the longer you stay in that environment, the harder it is to leave. Because salary doesn't just sustain you, it makes you addicted to comfort, afraid of change, and eventually kills the adventurous spirit inside you. They call salary the sweet trap because it doesn't make you suffer right away. It just convinces you to delay your dreams year after year. You say later, once things are stable, or when I save a bit more, I'll start a business, but that later could be forever. The system is designed to make sure you never have a surplus, no matter how many hours you work. And while you're still trying to save every penny, the value of money is dropping, inflation is rising, and investment opportunities are becoming more expensive. You're running a race where the rules were never meant for you to win. And yet, you're afraid to step off the track. The most important question isn't whether you earn a salary or not. It's whether you're fully dependent on it. Are you building any other sources of income? Are you learning how to make money work for you instead of trading time for it? The wealthy don't hate salaries. They just don't let salaries dictate their lives. They understand that a paycheck should be a launch pad, not a finish line. And if you truly want financial freedom, you must dare to step out of that comfort zone bit by bit, because the big game was never meant for those who live only to receive a paycheck. Let me tell you this. Entrepreneurship doesn't begin when you register a business, rent an office, or hang a sign on the door. True entrepreneurship starts in a very quiet moment when you look at your life and say, I will not live like this anymore. That's the moment you stop blaming your circumstances and stop saying you don't have enough capital, connections, or financial backing. Instead, you make a vow to yourself that from today, I will take ownership of every step, every dollar spent, every skill learned. Because the truth is that no one teaches you how to be financially free. School teaches you to follow rules, work in teams, and complete tasks, so you become a seamless part of someone else's machine. But no one teaches you how to build your machine. No one tells you about cash flow, about leveraging finances, or about turning a small idea into real value in the marketplace. That's why so many smart people stay poor, and so many hardworking people keep struggling, because they lack one crucial thing, the mindset of ownership. That mindset isn't something distant. It starts with the smallest choices each day. When you choose to read a book instead of scrolling social media, you're building a business. When you learn to manage your finances instead of spending impulsively, you're building a business. When you dare to sell your first product, even though no one guarantees your success, you're building a business. And when you fail, but instead of quitting, you treat it as a lesson and keep going, that's when you've truly stepped into the world of ownership. So if you've ever thought entrepreneurship is something big, luxurious, meant for other people, think again. It all starts from one change within you, not from the capital, not from $1 million idea, but from the commitment that I will no longer live a life that others have scripted for me. I will choose again. And every small action each day will be the first brick in the empire I will build. There will come moments in life when you find yourself standing at a crossroads with no way back. No old job to fall back on, no savings left to rely on, no one to ask, what should I do next? And it is in those moments when you feel like you've hit rock bottom that you truly begin to live as a grown human being. When there's no way back, your brain stops being lazy, your heart stops daydreaming, you begin to see clearly what is essential and what is excessive. You start to distinguish between what is truly urgent and what is merely an illusion. You no longer have time for excuses. You no longer have the mental space for fear. At that point, every cell in your body, whether out of worry or sheer survival instinct, focuses on one thing only: moving forward. And it is in that very moment that you discover you are far stronger than you ever thought. You learn to adapt, to learn quickly, to do things you never would have dared if you had remained in your comfort zone. You start acting, not because you're confident, but because you have no other choice. And it is precisely that leap, that moment of being forced to grow up, that leads you to a different version of yourself, braver, sharper, and closer to success than ever before. People often say, always prepare an exit route, so if you fail, you have somewhere to return to. But truly successful people don't think that way. They leave no escape. They shut the door behind them, forcing themselves to open the one in front, because they understand that it's not having many choices that makes you strong. It's when you're forced to move forward that you finally awaken the extraordinary power lying dormant within you. That's why many people only truly change their lives after a crisis. No job, no money, no one backing them. And it is in that very moment they do something miraculous, not because they're luckier, but because they chose not to turn back. You see, none of us want to find ourselves starting from zero, no income, no savings, no one hiring you, no one helping you. But it is in those harshest circumstances that you see your true character most clearly. When you have nothing left in your wallet, you discover, are you resilient or someone who gives up easily? Will you make excuses and blame the situation, or will you get to work, even with nothing but your bare hands? Without money, all the outer layers fall away. No one judges you by your job title or monthly paycheck anymore. And you can't even console yourself with pretty words. At that point, only one thing separates you from everyone else: how you respond. Some people choose deceit just to survive. Some choose to complain and blame the world. But others choose to rise, not because they're sure they'll succeed, but because they refuse to let poverty define who they are. Entrepreneurship is not just a story of skills and opportunities. It's a journey into the very core of your character. When you no longer receive a steady paycheck every month, you realize you must find a way to create value to earn. When no one pays you for your time, you see clearly. What are you offering? Hard work or something truly different? And when there's no one left to lean on, you learn the most important lesson of all. No one can save you except yourself. People say that money can't buy happiness, but when you have no money, you realize true happiness only comes when you dare to overcome adversity without losing yourself. And if you've ever faced a time when you had nothing, don't see it as failure. See it as a test that if passed will not only bring you wealth, but give you a character that no one can ever buy with dollars. Some people collapse when the economy crashes, but others at the same moment rise stronger. What creates that difference? It's not circumstance, it's a mindset. It's how they face the crisis. It's their inner economy, a personal financial system built on discipline, intelligence, and internal strength. The outside world is always in flux. Prices rise, policies shift, markets remain uncertain. But successful people don't spend their days complaining about inflation, about the government, or about things beyond their control. They turn inward. They ask themselves, what can I control? Do I have the skills to make money in any situation? Am I letting negative emotions make me quit? Those questions are the beginning of a strong personal economy. You don't need to predict the market. You just need to train yourself. When you control your emotions, sudden changes no longer panic you. When you learn to think strategically, you'll always spot opportunities, even during crises. When you have the skill to create real value, you don't need to wait for someone to pay you or beg anyone for help. And when you dare to invest in yourself, you'll see that the outside world can change, but you don't have to be changed with it. Poor people always look outward and say the economy is just too bad. Rich people look inward and say, I need to upgrade the operating system in my mind. Because they know that crisis is not the enemy, it's the test. And only those with real inner strength will pass. Don't wait for the economy to improve to take action. Take action so that no economy ever becomes your limitation. When you're strong from within, the world outside is no longer so frightening. When you are rich in wisdom, financial wealth becomes merely the outcome. We grew up in a world where debt was tied to worry, pressure, and failure. Since childhood, you've heard advice like, don't borrow money, pay off all debts before doing anything else. Or successful people are the ones without debt. No, but do you know that's advice for the poor? Advice meant to keep them poor. Because the rich understand debt is not the enemy. Debt is leverage. They don't borrow to spend, they borrow to invest. They borrow capital from banks at low interest and invest in high return assets. They create value and use that value to repay the loan and still profit. You call it risky? They call it strategy. When you understand the rules of the game, you're no longer a pawn. You start to move like a master chess player. Every move calculated, every step tied to a clear objective. And when you know how to use debt to create cash flow, you don't have to work forever just to pay the bills. Ironically, the people who don't understand money are the ones exploited most by the system. They borrow to buy things they don't need, then struggle to repay the debt with months of hard work. They buy homes thinking, A house is an asset, not realizing it's a decades-long financial obligation if they don't know how to extract real value from it. Meanwhile, the rich buy property to rent it out and generate income, and let others pay off the debt for them. Same tool, completely different outcome, all because of a different mindset. Debt isn't bad. Debt is only bad when used the wrong way. And the difference between someone crushed by debt and someone enriched by it comes down to one thing: financial knowledge. When you understand how the money game works, you stop being afraid. You begin using the very things others avoid as tools to unlock your financial freedom, because not everyone who avoids debt is safe. But those who understand debt, now they have true power. You were praised for good grades and for obediently following your teachers. But have you ever asked yourself, why, after 12 years of school and another 4 in college, has no one taught you how to make money, how to invest, or how to protect your assets? You know how to write essays, solve quadratic equations, recite world history, but you don't know how to avoid credit card traps, understand how inflation eats away at money, or how to make money work for you instead of working for it. That's not your fault. That's the system. A system designed to train people to follow the rules, not change them. That system needs hardworking employees, not financially independent individuals. And so you were taught how to take exams, how to follow instructions, how to comply, but you were never taught how to be free. You weren't taught about taxes, something you'll pay your entire life. You weren't taught about debt, a tool the wealthy use every day to build wealth. You weren't taught about real estate, the biggest asset most rich people hold. You weren't taught about leverage, the secret that makes them grow wealth 10 times faster than you. Meanwhile, the real world runs on very different principles. It rewards those who can calculate, invest, and take strategic risks. It doesn't care whether you graduated with honors. It only cares how well you solve problems and how much value you create. So if you keep placing blind faith in the old system, you'll always feel lacking, exhausted, and left behind. But if you wake up, you'll realize that real learning begins when you stop learning to pass exams and start learning to live. The world is changing every day. You don't need another degree. You need to relearn how to view money, rethink your financial mindset, and most importantly, learn how to become the one who owns the game, not just the one who plays by someone else's rules. The truly wealthy don't let their minds be controlled by markets, by news, or by outside opinions. They don't panic when stocks fall, when real estate slows, or when society enters crisis, because they know their greatest asset doesn't lie in a bank account. It lies in their mind. It's internal control, the ability to stay calm when the world is in chaos, to stay committed when others doubt, and to rise again after personal failure. Most poor people live in constant fear. Fear of losing their jobs, fear of debt, fear of losing what little they have. The middle class is bound by the illusion of stability. A long-term job, a modest savings plan, and a house with monthly payments. They live safely, but the price is their freedom. The truly wealthy, though, are different. They choose to invest in inner strength, because they know that if they're strong inside, even if they lose everything, they can rebuild from nothing. Inner control isn't something you're born with. It's the result of discipline, taking responsibility for your life, building habits, overcoming fear, and learning to make decisions not based on emotion. They understand. You cannot control the world, but you can always control yourself. And that makes all the difference. So if you're looking for a sustainable path to wealth, don't just study investment strategies or financial tools. Start by looking within. What are you thinking? What do you believe? And are you ready to change yourself before expecting to change your financial destiny? Because true wealth always starts from within. And only those who master their inner world can truly control their future. In these turbulent times, success doesn't belong to those who know the most, but to those who remain calm and grounded the most. And finally, let me say this. This world does not go easy on those who dream without action. It also doesn't wait for you to be ready before letting you begin. Those who wait for the perfect moment are usually the ones who never start. But you don't need ideal conditions to move forward. What you need is a firm decision that you will not live a life just to survive. You will live to break through. Mindset is the one thing you have complete control over, even when you have nothing else. If you carry with you a flexible mind, inner strength, and a hunger to learn, then even if you start late, you can still get ahead. But if you cling to outdated beliefs, that safety is the goal, that risk is dangerous, that failure is the end, then no matter where you begin, you'll remain stuck. This game is not for those who only blame. It's for those who dare to change themselves before asking the world to change. And you absolutely can be that person. I used to think that every overtime hour, every time I refused to spend money would bring me closer to a prosperous life. But then I saw too many people, diligent, dedicated, sacrificing their youth, still struggling to pay the bills each month. Not because they didn't work hard enough, but because they were heading in the wrong direction. The harder you work in a system that disempowers you, the more exhausted you become, and no closer to freedom. Finance is not a reward for the hardest worker. It is a reward for the one who dares to think differently, who sees life through a strategic lens, understanding how money works and how to leverage debt, taxes, and time. The things school never taught. The issue isn't how many hours you work. It's whether those hours are building you a financial engine that runs on its own. Don't let your entire life be a race on a hamster wheel. Constant motion but going nowhere. Survival isn't your destiny. It's simply the outcome of a mindset that hasn't been upgraded. And I want to ask you, 1, what were you taught about money that you now realize is no longer true? 2, among the 3 financial selves, the poor self, the middle class self, and the wealthy self, which one currently dominates your life? 3, if tomorrow you no longer received a paycheck, what would you do to survive and thrive? Let me know your answers in the comments.